Hey Giants fans, welcome back to Giants Latest. It's been a busy week for the Giants and the NFL, and we have a lot to discuss. So today we're going to talk about the Giants cuts that they made after securing the 53-man roster. We're going to talk about all the players that went to the practice squad, the players that didn't make it to the practice squad and ended up signing elsewhere, and then the two new signings that the Giants made. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Make sure you subscribe because there's a lot more coming your way. So let's start with this. The Giants have their initial 53-man roster, and then they go ahead and cut Gunnar and Corey Black. And I was surprised by the fact that they cut Gunnar because I'm like, you ended up picking him over Smith-Marsette, and then less than 24 hours, you go ahead and cut him. I know it is what it is. The roster is ever evolving, especially from now until the trade deadline. It's just really going to change a lot. I just thought it was interesting. I thought the same thing with cornerback Corey Black, who was one of the rookie draft picks this year. They went ahead and kept 7 corners on the 53, and then they go ahead and cut him. So, this whole thing is just very interesting, the way that it all shakes out. But those are two guys that they signed to the 53 and then went ahead and cut. So with that being said, let's move along to the practice squad because they did end up signing quite a few practice squad guys. So defensive lineman Elijah Chapman, who I know so many Giants fans were surprised when he did not make the 53, but he's now on the practice squad. Next up is 2 outside linebackers, Trace Ford and Tomon Fox, 2 guys that I had making the roster. Obviously did not, but they're on the practice squad now, which I think was a good move. Same thing with defensive lineman Elijah Garcia. He was okay during preseason, not great, probably just a decent depth piece to keep there. Center Brian Hudson, I'm not surprised one bit that he ended up getting cut. He just didn't do enough during camp to prove that he should be the backup there. And from what I understand, the Giants actually think that Greg Van Roten is one of the best centers on the team, which is a little concerning because John Michael Schmitz is the starter, but I digress. Wide receiver, Lil Jordan Humphrey. I know some fans were surprised or disappointed that he ended up getting cut. He's right back on the practice squad. Guard Jake Kubas, same thing. I know that the Giants do like him, but again, you can only keep so many offensive linemen, and he did not have a great showing throughout preseason. Safety Raheem Lane, who's dealing with some sort of injury, but I guess not anything serious. He's back on the practice squad. I'm sure he's going to be one of those guys who gets elevated at some point. Next up is the kicker Jude McAdamney, who's the international player. He's on the practice squad. Figured that was coming. Next up is my boy Dante Miller, Turbo. I'm so happy that he's back on the practice squad and did not get claimed by any other teams. Now, I believe that you can poach players off practice squads. So even though he's on the Giants practice squad right now, it doesn't mean that he's going to stay there. But I hope that he does. I'm rooting for Turbo. You guys know I love him. Big fan of his. And I'm really happy that he just ended up on the practice squad. So I think he's also going to be a guy that at some point during the season will get elevated, and we'll see him on Sundays, which will be fun. Next up is defensive lineman Jordan Riley. The Giants also like him. He was one of their draft picks, but when you look at the defensive lineman, he just did not do enough. Although I would say he had a decent preseason, probably better than I expected, but not enough to prove that he should be on the 53 and be ready to go if, God forbid, someone gets hurt week 1. Next up, wide receiver Amir Smith-Marsette. I'm glad that he made it back on the practice squad. I just don't understand what's really happening with special teams here. We're going to continue to talk through this over the next week or so as the roster continues to shape up. But when you look at the returners, there's no Gunnar, there's no Smith-Marsette, and there's no Turbo on the roster. So it's Devin Singletary, who I don't know about you guys. I don't really want him back there. Tyrone Tracy also has experience on returns. Don't want him back there. I saw Javon Holland back there at camp. I better not see that or I'm absolutely going to lose my shit. I don't think they're going to do that, but you never know. So, not amazing options for returners. And I'm missing someone that I can't think of right this second. There is someone who has special teams experience who could be used back there. But it's not Gunnar and it's not Smith-Marsette. So I'm not sure what the plan is with Smith-Marsette. Like I said, I'm glad he's back on the practice squad. I think he should have ended up on the roster. It's Bo Collins. Bo Collins is one of the guys on the 53 who has experience on special teams. That's one of the reasons why I think he ended up making the 53. Although I'm not sold on him being on the roster by the time week 1 comes along. I think it's probably more likely than not. But I do also think that there's a possibility that that could change from now until then. So very interesting to see what they do there. And speaking of special teams, the last player that they have on the practice squad right now is cornerback D. Williams. We also saw him quite a bit throughout preseason back there as a returner. But again, he's practice squad, not 53. So, again, the whole situation is going to be very interesting. A lot of changes that were made, and again, it's going to continue to change, so I will make sure that I keep you guys updated. Two players that I want to talk about who I think a lot of Giants fans were hoping to end up on the practice squad, and they did not because they got poached by other teams, is, I know, everyone's beloved paisano, the Italian stallion, Tommy Cutlets. Tommy DeVito is now a New England Patriot. Now, I did not know this information until recently. Art Stapleton posted this, and I don't know if this was common knowledge and I just happened to miss it or what. 2 years ago, Bill Belichick called Tommy DeVito when he was about to sign to the Giants practice squad. I guess he was sitting in MetLife Stadium in the parking lot. He gets a call from Belichick, who of course is still with the Patriots at the time, and offers him a little bit more money to come sign with the Patriots practice squad and potentially battle it out to be the backup quarterback. Now, I was very surprised when I heard that. And I think if you're Tommy DeVito, that is a tough choice to make because we all know who Bill Belichick is and what he's capable of. And, obviously the Patriots are a well-known, respected organization, just like the Giants are. But, we all know he's from Jersey. I think he loved the Giants connection. Obviously, there's a lot of talk of the time about Brian Daboll and his experience with quarterbacks and development and all of that kind of thing. So, I think that it worked out with Tommy. Obviously, he got to play in the NFL. He got to win games. He got to be a starter. He got a lock to Cedar Grove, which is the town that he lives in. He got like a key or a lock to the town, like from the town mayor. So, the whole like Linsanity, Tommy DeVito run, I think it worked out for him in the long run. And now he gets to go to the Patriots and potentially will have an opportunity to play there. I mean, the way that this Giants quarterback room is Tommy DeVito's not getting starting playing time this year. So I think it made the most sense for him. It made the most sense for the Giants. Ciao to Tommy DeVito. Buona fortuna. Good luck in New England. I know people will be sad to see him go, but, it was a numbers game. It made the most sense. And when you look at the quarterback room, they're not trading Jameis Winston. I hope this just kind of reminds everyone that they're not doing that because of the move that they just made by sending Tommy DeVito away. But again, good luck to Tommy DeVito. On to the next. Greg Dulcich gets claimed by Miami. Now, I was joking around in my family group chat saying, of course he went to Miami because Darren Waller is the only other tight end there. They traded away Jonnu Smith. So Darren Waller, who's Mr. Injury Prone, who's coming out of retirement, who hasn't played football in a year and a half, Greg Dulcich, that's a great opportunity for him. If I were him and that was one of my options, I'd have been like, hell yeah, I got 4 other tight ends I got to compete with on the Giants roster, or it's me and Darren Waller in Miami with Tua. Yeah, I think I'll take that. So Greg Dulcich is a guy I know that performed really well throughout preseason. I know a lot of Giants fans loved him, were very disappointed when the Giants ended up releasing him, and I know we're probably even more disappointed that he did not make it back to the practice squad. But, I think the good thing about waivers and when things like this happen is that for the first time in a long time, the Giants have good enough players that they're getting claimed by other teams, and that, the Giants feel like they're in a good enough spot at a position like the quarterback and the tight end where they have 3 and 4 players and even running back that they love and that they were willing to advocate for and keep more on the roster than they normally would, and let these guys go elsewhere. So I think it was beneficial to everyone. I think it was the right move. I'm a little disappointed. I did like Dulcich, but ultimately I kind of felt like when it comes to the Giants, they're going to be a little bit more loyal to the players that they drafted than the players that they kind of, signed off of practice squads and things like that. We've seen it with Evan Neal, with Jalen Hyatt, with Daniel Bellinger, the list goes on. So I'm not entirely surprised there. But obviously, Dulcich did a really nice job during preseason. It's a little bit of a bummer to see him go. But I think overall, the Giants have a great tight end room. And I think from that perspective, I hope that, Giants fans are not panicking about the tight end room because he went to Miami. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the 2 players that the Giants signed off waivers. Now, the way that waivers works is they had until 12 o'clock yesterday. Once 12 o'clock hit, they were allowed to submit all their waiver claims. You're allowed to submit claims for as many players as you want. So if you wanted to submit 53 waiver claims, which is insane, you'd be able to do that. The problem is if the Titans or the teams in front of the Giants went ahead and claimed all the players that they wanted, and obviously they have the first team priority, they're going to get them. So the Joe Shane and Brian Dable spoke to the media and said those were the only two claims that they put in, and they ended up getting them, which is great. But I'm curious to see, again, as this roster develops, do they end up making any claims a couple days from now, a week from now, the Saturday before the game? Like, you never know. So I'm excited to see how that evolves. But they claimed two players, like I said. One of them is safety Bo Braid, who comes to us from the Ravens, and then cornerback Rico Payton from the Saints. So they are both in their second year in the NFL. So they're young. We know the Giants like to bring in young players. They do have a little bit of experience in the NFL, and they both play special teams. So that was something that when Shane and Dable were asked about those players specifically, that's why they brought them in. Special teams is obviously a must-have for those type of guys. And, like we talked about earlier this week when we went through the 53-man roster, they only had 3 safeties. So safety was a position that I expected them to go after in free agency. So, I'm excited to see these guys out on the field. We're not going to see them until next week when they take on the Commanders, because now it's just practice. So it's going to be interesting to see if we see them game day, who gets elevated. But like I said, the roster is going to be ever evolving and changing from now until then, and then the weeks beyond. So I will keep you guys up to date on everything New York Giants. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel for more.